You heard from just a fantastic corporate panel this morning, and this afternoon we have yet another fantastic panel, and this is a gathering of executives from economic development organizations in the Americas. We are just delighted to have them here. And
what are some of the considerations to keep in mind if you're a company or you're advising a company on doing business in the United States, which of course is the area that I'll be speaking about, because it is a daunting thing. It is a country which, although it operates under one set of national laws, really does reflect 50 different cultures and 50 different sets of regulations, policies, and laws underneath that national umbrella. So Missouri sits very conveniently in the center of the country, more or less. Major cities that people might know in Missouri are St. Louis and Kansas City. Population of about 6 million, making it the 18th largest state in the country, a workforce that's about 3 million. Low energy costs, so for manufacturing companies, the fact that we're a top 10 state in terms of lowest electricity prices, that bodes very well for energy-intensive companies. One thing that we like to talk about is a AAA credit rating. Any of you who are familiar with the United States know that many state governments right now are going through some very painful choices. That decision, many of the ITRA Global members, they are the experts. So I would say that if you are a company considering expanding into the U.S., if you have the budget to afford it, I would suggest retaining the services of a professional advisor. There is a notable difference when you see companies who try to undertake this effort on their own versus those that take the time to involve a professional, experienced, expert advisor to help guide them. Mozilla, that was fascinating to me because it was so focused on retaining and attracting a certain type of workforce. For manufacturing companies, it may be some combination of energy costs, access to raw materials, proximity to customers. Either way, every company is going to have its own unique set that allows them to define what that first list of states is that they consider. State governments and the dollars that they spend operate on a fiscal year basis. And they, within that 12-month period, often they're given a certain amount of money by the state legislature to the state agency to give out for incentives. And it's a use it or lose it proposition. So I think savvy companies can leverage that fact and know that if they go into negotiation late in the fiscal year with the state or local government, there's a good chance they might be able to get more dollars in that. We like to say that incentives make a good site better, but they don't make a bad site good. And there's
starting at that macro level, we as part of the Council of American States in Europe are getting high tech. We're looking at high value add. We're looking to leverage our skills in Pennsylvania. We take the view, states locating, companies locating communities. They do not locate in states as an overall entity. And we work with our partners, Pittsburgh Regional Alliance, and co-sponsor of our presence here. And I'd like to recognize Susie Pegg, who's the vice president of the Pittsburgh Regional Alliance and runs the international program, Energy, where there is a coalescence of 6 distinct energy technologies, which is really unique in the US. Grants and tax credits, and one of the key drivers is the Keystone Opportunity Zone program. Effectively, the Keystone Opportunity Zone gives up to 100% exemptions from state and local corporate, property, and sales taxes. It is
We are very grateful to Mr. Polina for awarding us the #1 spot as the best place from a location and in position for 2012. And it's really interesting, in America there's always #1 and kind of the rest of the world kind of a thing. So we are very grateful that we did get that. So what do we offer? We offer a stable government. We have, by constitution, we have to balance our budget. I remember a couple of years ago we took in too much money, and so we sent everybody $1,000.
So in 2011, Ontario was the 3rd recipient in North America of foreign direct investment. In fact, the president and CEO of ICICI Bank quoted this statement not so long ago and explained that their success of the past 10 years of growing from 0 to over $5 billion in assets in Canada is largely due to the quality and the availability of the workforce.
In terms of investment outreach, we are focusing 5 priority sectors for the state of São Paulo, which are oil and gas. Because of the recent oil discoveries in Brazil, 60% of the new oil reserves in the pre-salt layer are located along the coastline of the state of São Paulo. And 65% of the supply chain for oil and gas is already set in the state of São Paulo. So in June this year, and they already announced the investment, and they're going to start manufacturing in December. That was Lenovo to manufacture 2 million laptops per year in their new facility in the state of São Paulo. Brazil is one of the few countries in the world which has the largest amount of the population below 30 years of age, equally distributed between men and women. So this tells us that you will have qualified workforce able to work for you for many years. And obviously, when we all grow old, it's going to be a huge market for healthcare and life sciences. And cosmetics as well, you know.
There are, as I think more than one has said, incentives and reasons to set up in a country. These are the kinds of incentives. Mexico also offers some sort of reasons. We use it to say that we have the largest network of free trade agreements in the world. Now came into the international scene, and they took the jobs from Mexico to China. Now we learned, I think we offer a different perspective now. First, we are by ourselves very interesting. The immigration laws in Mexico, I think, are great. Everybody just have to walk south to the border and you're welcome. That's about it.
What kind of assistance can I expect to get from your economic development organization if I'm representing a company that wants to stay in your state? And I come to you and I say, I've got some issues here, Chris. What can you do for my client?
So this is an existing company
An
that's
existing
already
company.
in Missouri. Well, incentives, should that be part of the factor? Companies that are planning major capital investment expansions or job creation, typically in most states, and I presume provinces and countries, will qualify for some type of financial subsidy. But if there are issues with, let's say, reliability or cost of energy, or issues with hiring, training, finding workforce that can be productive, if it's permitting issues, again, that's frequently a point that companies in the U.S. will need some help navigating. Those are all issues where economic developers, again, in any state, really, if they're worth their salt, what they're going to do is assemble the right team of the specific individuals who oversee the particular problem and try to devise a solution designed to help that company get through those and keep their presence in that particular location.
Yeah, Richard, I have a question for you. How long would it take to build a 200,000 square foot manufacturing plant in your area?
That's a good question. Depending on the time of the year, depth of the winter.
Right. Let's say worst case scenario, from groundbreaking to occupancy.
Well, I think I can tell you it's a damn sight quicker than it would get built in the UK, because just in terms of regs and fast tracking and so on. But you'll be looking at 6 months.
I can refer to a specific case right now in Mexicali, Baja California, which is just in the border with Calexico with California, close to Tijuana. I think it is considerably less than in the United States. I don't think there is a lot of red tape on the government side. On the contrary, the government is really trying to attract any kind of business, maybe because of political reasons. I will say that your question has several ways to answer. I can tell you that if you need a 200,000 square feet or meter facility, you can have it by tomorrow, because there is already enough capacity installed. Who belongs to maybe Carlos Slim or one of the, let's say, 10 richest families in Mexico. who owns like 95% of the country. They do have everything ready right now, and they have a specific kind of agreement or arrangement called shelters. You can get into a factory tomorrow.
It's probably very similar in Colombia as well. I would just add that it all depends on the kind of facilities you're building. I mean, if you acquiring a land, if you already have the land, for example, and the land is how do you say that? If the land is already planned to be able to host a business facility, the procedures are quite easy. In Colombia, there are sometimes we have faced with some companies that we support and assist. We have faced some problems at with the local authorities, with the regional authorities. It's not the central government. The central government procedures are quite smooth, easy. Sometimes the procedures at with the local authorities could be hard in terms of environmental licenses, or the 3 or 4 different licenses they have to provide. But in general, it's not a big issue. I mean, I wouldn't say that makes a big difference when you compare it to any other country in the region, or even here in Europe.
I would like to address quite fast this question as well. In terms of investment, the pace of getting things done in Brazil, the time frame has been reduced substantially. We have done this through 2 ways. One is a strong investment, a huge investment in e-government. Everything can be done electronically, and you can get the permits, you can get everything, your registration online. So this is something to speed up the process, so that in advance the investor will know exactly what is required from him or from her to comply with the legislation. Second, it's a very clear regulatory system, so we make sure that we spend more time educating the investor to understand, so that the investor will understand what is required to comply with the law. Sometimes it's not bureaucracy, sometimes it's the lack of full knowledge by the side of the investor on how to comply with the legislation. So this may stop, the process. Well, you have not met all the criteria, so the process comes back to the, ground zero. So we make sure that it will follow through the process and speed up.
If I may, just to add a small thing here, probably the only piece of advice that I would give to any company that is acquiring a land or building facilities in Colombia is, as someone said before, just do it with a local agent. Find someone in Colombia, a Colombian company who provides those services. So you just don't go by yourself and try to look for a land and look for a building company by yourself. Do that with a local organization, and it works.
I guess a follow-up to that is, are there any restrictions on land ownership by foreign companies?
Yeah, in Mexico there is an ownership restriction in the seashore and in the border. But that is avoided if you create a trust or some sort of thing. And this is in the Constitution, who was written at the beginning of the 20th century. And this is because the government doesn't want an enemy building a bridge and opening a door for somebody to invade, which may change in the future. But the only restriction for foreigners to own property is in the beach. And we see four-season hotels everywhere and in the borders. But a trust will be the solution.
Well, I want to thank the panel. And I guess what we're saying here is, when you get a new company coming into your state or your country, it's kind of like a marriage. Just because you got married doesn't mean you can ignore them afterwards. So thank you all very much